Good morning. This is the Friday Fireside, and I'm here with Gigi Martin Duarte from Hearts and Sciences. Gigi, how are you?
I'm doing well. It's a beautiful day here in Dallas, so couldn't be happier to be joining you on the Fireside Chat.
There you go. And so people understand, Gigi is a fan of the Texas Rangers, who has kicked my Orioles out of the playoffs at least once. At least she's not a Yankees fan. But on the other hand, she's a Dodgers fan, and all they're doing is spending money and packing the stadiums. But anyway, yeah, we'll get past it. Okay, now Sabio right here actually pointed to it and it stuck. Sabio is the sponsor of the Friday Fireside, and they work with you and they introduced us. But first of all, let's learn a little bit about who you are and what Hearts and Sciences is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for having me. Really excited to spend some time with you today, to get to know you better, share a little bit more about myself, and talk about all the cool stuff that's been going on at Hearts and Science and with the Sabio crew. So, diving right in about myself, I'm Gianna, but as you mentioned, most people call me Gigi. It's really a nickname that stuck since I was young and kind of has a nice little spark to it.
Okay.
So, really love it, and it's a lot of fun and easy to remember. As I mentioned, I actually sit in Dallas, Texas, and serve as a multicultural experience lead here at Hearts and Science. And I'll tell you more about Hearts and Science in a minute. And really, a function of my role is I lean and lead on cross-cultural campaigns for AT&T. So we're really looking for ways to further advance our work to connect with growth audiences. So as you think about young, diverse consumers, Hispanic, African Americans, etc. When I take a minute to just think about, right, like advertising and media, it's really all about crafting stories that are really going to resonate. And for me, it's been exciting because I've had the opportunity to do this for well over a decade and have had different stints over my professional career. I started out at Lionsgate and NBC Universal, really leaning in on studio work and learning how to make a brand loud and splash. And then I transitioned over to some more innovative roles, really helping establish some of the multicultural practices, which we know is kind of evolving as the years go on at agencies like Canvas Worldwide, Hayworth Marketing and Media, and most recently Palisades Media Group. And I've worked on a couple of notable brands, including Kia, Walmart, Netflix, just to name a few. And it's been a real privilege to just help them support their multicultural marketing initiatives. And it's been really rewarding as well, coming out of my undergraduate studies at Pepperdine, where I really leaned in with integrated marketing and Hispanic studies, go Waves. And it was a time where multicultural media was really just experiencing a groundswell. And for me, I like the idea of being able to really blend my knowledge with data and different media tools with also that, I don't know what we would call it, like cultural savvy, being bilingual, and just allowing myself to better connect with, at the time, what I perceived to be underserved growth audiences.
Okay. Well,
And
and and we know you're bilingual because you speak American League and National League. So
exactly. And I think it's interesting that you make that reference because it's really the idea of being able to be a true 200%er, right? Like 100% American, leaning in, seventh generation Texan on my mom's side, and simultaneously 100% Hispanic, Latino on my dad's side. So first generation. So it's a lot of fun and really, really rewarding. And it's been fun to just help establish some skill sets that I knew I had, and skill sets that I didn't even know that I had, that I've been able to really foster, finding my advertising tribe, helping me not only connect to my cultural and my culture professionally, but also like really allowing for an opportunity to expand into other audiences, right? So outside of Hispanic, other groups and growth audiences that are really an imperative for business growth. Outside of work, though, I think like we get caught up on that quite a bit. I really think it's important to talk about work-life balance. And for me, when I'm not working on media campaigns or pitching for some of the latest ideas, I'm really, really passionate about taking time out to give back. So as a part of that kind of parallel pathing with my media work is I serve as a mentor for the 4A's Foundation, continue to really lean in and advocate for equity in media, just knowing the amount of investment that various brands are making every year when it comes to advertising, and sitting on our Elevate Center of Excellence at Omnicom, really serving as a cultural practitioner. I'm able to really just volunteer and champion for opportunities to reach these growth audiences. And then, separately, I really step into a position where I like to help elevate Service for Sight, which is a foundation that supports the blind and visually impaired. And it's really, really fun. So outside of that, just love spending time with my family and listening to music, sports, as we talked about earlier, and just really a lover of life. So that's a little bit about me.
Okay. Give us a broad picture of Hearts and Sciences. They've been around for a while, but in all honesty, I'm not exactly sure what they do. So what do they do?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I'll try to keep this pretty straightforward, but Hearts and Science is essentially a media agency where data meets heart. We are part of the Omnicom Media Group, and we're really all about crafting media strategies that are going to connect brands with people in a way that feels authentic and real. So the Hearts, right, is all about tapping into emotions, and the science is really using data to make that happen and implement strategies and plans. So we work with a variety of really iconic, impactful, and innovative brands across the globe, creating campaigns from television to digital, custom content, you name it, we do it. As you mentioned earlier on, I am technically the senior director of the multicultural experience team, and my primary focus is actually on telecommunication brand AT&T. So my gig is really built on developing campaigns that really vibe and generate some connectivity with Hispanic audiences, African American audiences, and other growth segments, really making sure that we're authentic and impactful. We really dive into what is like making these consumers tick, what is really driving these communities to pull out their pocketbook and make a purchase. And building on those insights, we then will team up with an amazing group of data scientists, investment leads, and our, of course, creative teams who are equally as important to help kind of, bring these ideas to life. And it's been great because we've done some amazing award-winning work over the past 4 years that I've been here. And it's really been rewarding and thrilling to see AT&T so successful. Actually, just earlier this week, AT&T was named the 2025 Hispanic Marketer of the Year, which was an amazing honor and really kind of highlights the mix of strategy, creativity, and heart that goes into all the programs that we develop.
So how do you work with Sabio?
Yeah, absolutely. So Sabio has really been a go-to partner for our agency and brands when it comes to reaching growth audiences in what I would deem a really smart and precise way. Their mobile platform really is good at helping us connect through a combination of their app science solutions, their CTV, as well as just overarching digital placements that are all leveraging first-party data, either directly from our brands and agencies or that Sabio actually has access to. So it's super unique in the sense that we're able to really create a secret sauce, if you will. So for AT&T and Sabio, it's really been an asset as a partnership in driving scale and precision in our ability to hit our growth segments, who really are cord cutters, right? And are spending a lot more time streaming their favorite content on demand, on their time.
Yep.
So I think to contextualize this, right, maybe for folks who aren't as familiar with how these media plans come to life, we can kind of create a scenario, right? Like I'm setting the scene. Picture this. We're rolling out some of the biggest device launches throughout the year. So think shiny new tablets, smartphones, wearables. Sabio's data shows us where our audiences are hanging out and spending time, whether that's, you know, Hispanic fans streaming their favorite video content.
Yep.
Maybe that's young and diverse Gen Z streaming gaming content through the app. And it could even be more general, right? Reaching millennial homeowners and parents who are browsing the latest food content. We really use this technology to deliver ads that feel more personal, and that allows us to drive results because we're actually catching people at the perfect moment when maybe we know they're going to be in market or excited about a new device that we're launching. So I think to wrap it up on just how Sabio has been a great partner, they really have a lovely multicultural lens. They have been a great partner in the sense that they don't just, hand over the results and they say, okay, your campaign ran and that's it.
Yep.
They really help us lean in and refine some of those cultural details to make sure that our creative is going to stand out in front of the right consumers. We're going to show up in the right place at the right time. And I think a key to that is transparency that you don't always get with some of the big data platforms and players, which means that we have the partnership and flexibility to tweak the campaigns as they're live, right? So if something isn't necessarily going right or we need to make some adjustments, we have the flexibility to do that. So truthfully, Sabio's team has been such a blast to work with. They're really passionate and help us make our campaigns pop and help us put our brands in the right place at the right time.
Okay, now speaking about the right place at the right time, one of the things that not being an expert in multicultural marketing, I do know one mistake that big brands tend to make is they equate Hispanics in Miami with Hispanics in LA.
Yeah.
Boy, they aren't the same folks. How do you, through Hearts and Sciences, how do you subdivide, just take those two broad strokes, how do you subdivide those audiences and help your clients effectively market something that, for all intents and purposes, on the outside feels like the same group? How do you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's a combination of refining how we think about the marketplace. So I think a good example, right, without getting too specific, because every vertical and agency is going to have a different point of view. But I think we want to take a moment to acknowledge that there's an ever-changing face of the American consumer, right?
Oh, yeah.
So right now we have a couple of cohorts of consumers. You know, I talk about it thinking Hispanic, Black consumers, Asian consumers, really creating a major wave of influence when it comes to purchase power. So we know that it's going to be roughly $6 trillion in that ballpark of buying power to date, making up nearly 40% of the overall arching US population. So we know that the new general market is multicultural. So ways that we can show up if we are limited by law or by way of some of our platforms on ethnicity targeting.
Yep.
There's low hanging fruit, right? Where there's going to be language nuances. You mentioned Hispanics in Miami, probably going to have more influence from Cuba or
That's
the
right.
Caribbean, whereas, Latinos in Southern California or even Texas are going to have more of a Mexican influence. And we know the colloquial way of speaking Spanish is going to be different. So certainly we could lean in on language as a qualifier to kind of hone in on those nuances or intersectionality of what it means to be Hispanic, what makes us tick, what's most interesting. I think the other piece to it, or an example, would be from a creative lens, leaning in on insights that are driven by said Hispanic or Black consumers that we can ultimately drill down into some universal truth or universal perspective of the world that we live in today. And that's proven successful. And when you have a piece of creative or a couple pieces of creative that can ultimately really resonate and make people feel like you're talking to them, or really consumers, that they stand out to us as a brand by then showing up in endemic or relevant environments, or when we show up in a key cultural moment. I believe that there's more brand affinity, and we see it in the numbers. So it's certainly tricky. I don't think that there's one right way or wrong way, but it's something that has proven successful for us. Again, capturing the power and bridging the power of those data insights with some compelling creative, and buying media in environments that make sense and where these consumers are spending time.
Okay, now it's interesting you talk about kind of a universal truth, and I would assume that there are people in the creative team who look at you and said, "Oh my God, how many versions of the spot do you want me to make?" Let's get past that. You can deliver to them a message that says, you do it this way, and you appeal to everybody, but over here you might have a fine tune with this, and over here you might have a fine tune with that. Is that roughly the approach?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say, kind of going back to my example earlier on setting the stage, when you
Yep.
have a shiny new device launch that's happening, there may be some universal offer, right? Doesn't matter who you are, what you have going on. You come in today, any year, any condition, you can drop this phone off and get the latest and greatest. Now, there may be some nuances to your point where for some of our growth audience consumers, specifically Hispanic consumers, that they're more interested in the technology. So we may adjust that ad to be more focused or talking about the camera
Yeah,
technology or the
I
new
was just
AI
thinking about that. Yep.
capabilities. Maybe our Black consumers are a little bit more motivated by those offers. So it's like, hey, bring your phone in. And then we can have the rest of your family converted, or the costs are covered to get some new lines over with our group. So I think those are the nuances without losing the integrity of the substance of the message, or the integrity of the creative and the essence of the message we're trying to convey. But it's certainly interesting what gets people motivated, and there are definitely distinctions. And I think those are the small things that don't seem like a big deal on the grand scale, right, of putting media plans together, but can certainly effectively make the difference or move the needle just enough in a really competitive and saturated vertical like telecommunications.
And get a message that resonates, opens the pocketbook, of course, which at the end of the day, it's hearts and sciences. That, as we said when we were warming up, it's also hearts and wallets. But a
Yeah.
message that resonates to these consumers, so that you can get the degree of penetration and sales that you want. So growth segment from multicultural, we know that's where the business is growing. If a brand is not deeply engaged in that, they're in trouble because the train has left the station and it's moving away from them quickly. Where do you see your work and Hearts and Sciences work going in the next couple of years? Because the business is changing, the products are changing, and all the rest of it. What what is the future of multicultural marketing for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I just wanted to acknowledge that you were spot on, right, with your comment that I think any brands or agency nowadays, just we talked about the buying power, just the sheer volume of these consumers in the United States today. Ignoring them means missing half the market, right? By 2045 ish, when the new majority is our growth audiences.
Yep.
So it's interesting that you ask about what does the future hold. I think there are kind of three areas of innovation, and now this is coming from my personal perspective in the
Well,
world of
that's
Gigi.
why you're here talking to us. We want your personal perspective.
So I can only predict so much, but from a quick hit perspective, I think there'll be kind of like three key innovations and developments that we're kind of like living through the growing pains now, but very excited about all the possibility and potential. And I think that first one is going to be AI driven cultural personalization. And what does that mean? I believe that there are going to be tools, whether those are proprietary within agencies, proprietary within brands, and ultimately probably future technologies that we don't even foresee coming yet because of the rate of evolution that's happening.
Mhm.
But ideally, AI is going to help us tailor content, right? Specific to different cultural groups. So think of it like curating a diaspora specific playlist or maybe a holiday recommendation. For different groups, right? So it's that intersectionality, the multiple factors that require a human lens to date that AI is going to help us further advance by leveraging insane amounts of data and being injected into some of these first party pipelines so that we can accurately depict and understand, or I guess, project what these consumers are going to be doing and where they're going to be showing up and how we can best impact them. Now, I think some people are probably shaking in their boots, like our job is going to be relevant in a few years' time. And it's uncertain. I think we want to be positive, right, about the influence of AI, but there's certainly a slippery slope. So I think some of the risks associated with leaning on AI too much without that human lens, without the hearts helping elevate the science, we risk kind of finding ourselves in an echo chamber, right? Like if it's not balanced, that we're maybe not talking to the right people, or we're only oversaturating the same audiences. So it will certainly be something that we'll keep an eye on. And I think a lot of brands and agencies are thinking about. So that AI driven cultural personalization, excuse me. I think the second evolution and innovation that may be coming is going to be more emphasis on immersive storytelling. So imagining more emphasis on virtual reality and augmented
Yeah.
realities to help us bring underrepresented stories to the table. And maybe that is something like the experience of really underrepresented or marginalized groups like Native Americans here in the US, or even going so far to say, capturing an experience of an immigrant, whether that's here in the US or even abroad, and bringing that to life because you don't feel so disconnected
Yep.
from some of these stories that sometimes we feel like we can't relate to. So when we're in it from a first person point of view, it really changes the perspective and the impact. Though I will say, I think there's a lot of benefit to it. There are, right? The white underbelly could be potentially like high cost and access to some of these VR, AR tools and just creator access, right? Like if we're really trying to tell those stories of maybe smaller creators that just, again, accessibility and equity is a big thing. And I think the last thing is just how creators are able to just monetize their art and their work.
Okay.
So I think about blockchain coming in to help creators and overall ownership of their art and what they create and their videos and their assets. And what this would do is really let multicultural creators control and monetize their work directly. And I think that's amazing and it's going to be super innovative. But right now, as exciting as it may be for a Hispanic filmmaker, right, to be able to sell their films or their content or get paid for things that they're creating. I think the blockchain system right now, I don't consider myself an expert, is very complex. And from what I understand, you need to be very well versed in order to kind of participate and take advantage of that ecosystem. So I think it will evolve once there are more tools available to creators and just individuals like ourselves to further advance and take advantage of the blockchain. So I think those would be kind of like the three big things that I see innovating for multicultural media in the near future. And I think certainly the AI component and storytelling are lanes that Hearts and Science and our multicultural team have been really interested in learning more and developing solutions for.
Well, it does sound like you love this business, don't you?
I do. It's a lot of fun, certainly challenging at times. But I think the low is kind of what makes the high so sweet, right? So it's been a lot of fun. And like I said, I've been doing it for quite a while. So excited to see kind of what the evolution continues to bring.
Cool. All right. Well, Gigi Martin Duarte from Hearts and Sciences. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate that. And this will air in a couple of weeks on the Friday Fireside. Bye bye bye.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for everything. I appreciate it.